At this time, I'd like to bring on our special guest, a former Husker from Lincoln Southwest, a man who went on to play in the NFL for the Buffalo Bills, a former wide receiver here for the Big Red, Mr. Brandon Reilly. How you doing, my friend?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. And I got a whole plethora of questions. I'm going to start off with this. And I'm sure you love the coaches that you played for, but if you could play right now for the Big Red, how excited as a wide receiver would you be to play for Dana Holgorsen?
Very, for sure. Obviously, his reputation as, a great offensive mind, one of the best in the game, I would say. I feel it'd be a pretty appealing spot. I know we'll probably have a lot of transfer portal receivers, and I would like to think it would be a hot spot with a combination of him and Raiola at QB.
So that was my next question. All right, it's not just the guy calling the plays who wants to throw the ball, hashtag air raid. It's the guy throwing the ball. All right, this is a guy with a full year starting experience now, one of the most highly recruited players in the history of Nebraska football. How excited would you be to play under Dana Holgorsen with Dylan Raiola?
Pretty ecstatic. It's you put the work in the off season, and that's a tough combination to beat from OC to quarterback. And I think it's one of them things. If you get open and deliver or get some trust with the QB, that he can deliver the ball. And I think we'll see big strides from Raiola from year one to year two. I mean, true freshman quarterback, as you know, getting to college, the game's a different speed, and I'm looking forward to his growth this offseason as he gets more athletic and stronger and all those sorts of things, but also understands Dana's offense more, and I think we'll see great things.
So let's say that you are not from Lincoln. Let's say you had no tie to the state of Nebraska. You're a college football wide receiver who's just entered the transfer portal. You look at Nebraska. How enticing would coming to Nebraska to play wide receiver be versus, I'm sure, USC? Lincoln Riley is looking for some. And Florida State. Stay the hell out of Nebraska, Florida State. All right, all these other schools. How enticing would Nebraska be, all right, with Dana, with Dylan, knowing that there's playtime available, knowing that there's money available in the NIL? Let's say you're a above average receiver, okay? Obviously, if you're top flight, you can do whatever. Let's just say in this scenario, you're above average receiver. How enticing to you on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high, would Nebraska be to you?
Well, I'm pretty biased, so I got
you got to take that out of it. Take that out of it.
I got to take that out. I would say 8 or 9 because, the opportunity is there to step in and start. And, kind of what I said earlier with the OC, the QB, the opportunity to start. And I think a lot of guys in the portal who've never been to a Husker game or even probably to the state, it might not be top of their list until they talk to someone who has been. And once they would experience that game day atmosphere and combined with all the other things, I think you're at an 8 or a 9.
Dude, I agree with you. And everybody's different. I don't know why a wide receiver would ever leave this scenario, and I can see plenty of reasons why a wide receiver would come in my humble opinion. All right, man, I have a soft spot in my heart for walk-ons. The players I keep in touch with to this day, as much, maybe more than anybody I played with, tends to be walk-ons. My brother-in-law, all right, is a Jeff McBride, no relation to Charlie, was a walk-on. That's how I met my wife. So I've always got a soft spot for walk-ons. All right, they have to do everything the scholarship guys do, plus they're trying to pay for school. All right, so they're getting rid of the walk-ons in college football. You were a walk-on. Dude, how does that settle with you? Because obviously if you watch the press conference yesterday with Matt Rule, it's very frustrating to him, and he's very unhappy about it for multiple reasons. He also has to let go of a bunch of guys, which he doesn't want to do. But how does that strike you, going from 85 to 105 scholarships? Hey, we're increasing the scholarships, but that's the limit of the roster, so you're getting rid of the walk-on program. Kind of what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point, and it's tough, really. I'm sure just like when I was there, when you were there, there's guys when after their senior year of high school, I mean, they're nowhere near developed, and it takes a little bit longer, and some college coaches and recruiters can see that, but sometimes they miss. And I just think of all the walk-ons when I was there, if they wouldn't have had that opportunity, where would their life have been differently? The life lessons you learn from football, but but also the great football players. I mean, you look at the walk-ons to the NFL at Nebraska, and I mean, how many of those guys had, almost double-digit careers in the NFL? It's a sad deal. I keep thinking something will change for the better, but it's a tough pill to swallow. And I guess I just got to be fortunate that I'm getting old and things were different back then.
So it's funny when you said that, sometimes coaches miss, sometimes players, there's late developers. So I looked up Dennis Rodman because I watched a thing on him about a year ago. And I was thinking he went from 6'2" to 6'7". So I'm just going to read this. After finishing high school, Rodman worked as an overnight janitor at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. He then experienced a sudden growth spurt from 5'11" to 6'7" and decided to try basketball. And then he was tipped, the head coach in North Central Texas was tipped off. And then he went there, and then he went to, Southeastern Oklahoma State, where he became an All-American and then turned into frickin' Dennis Rodman. So sometimes guys just develop later, 5'11" to 6'7" after high school in 1 year. That's crazy to me. All right, man. So what are your thoughts on the Huskers season as a whole? And then as you look into next year, projecting in I don't know how you project anything right now with everything that's gone on with the coaching and the transfer portal. But Brandon, what do you project into next year for year 3 under Matt Rule? Or what are your thoughts going into year 3?
Yeah, well, year 2 was better than year 1. I'll say that. And, it's tough because, schedule came out for this last year, obviously.
Yep.
Everyone similar to myself got pretty optimistic and saw, the beginning of the season, it could start 7-0, all these sorts of things. And then that doesn't happen. And then it kind of spirals a little and things maybe seem like the old days, but I definitely saw progress towards next year. You ask, that's tough,
it is.
With coaches changes and, who's the D coordinator going to be, all those sort of things. But I'm a firm believer that, your stud QB has a big off season ahead, not just in the gym, but also with the OC, getting close to him, learning the offense. And, when he's not thinking out there and just reading the defense quick, he can make those decisions. And obviously his arm talent is there to make any pass. I'm not going to give projection records by any means, but
Good idea.
Year 2 was better than year 1. And I'm thinking year 3 will be better than year 2.
Well, you're technically right in the aspect of we went from 5-7 to 6-6. So technically you are correct. It did get better. You know what? Let me ask you this question. If Nebraska went to 7-5, not stayed the same, didn't get worse, they went to 7-5 next year, knowing the very little that we know about next year at this moment in time, would you be happy with that? Technically getting better.
I wouldn't, no. But I also think, you see this year, I don't really base it just strictly off the record because, how many of those games could we have won? Illinois should have won. Ohio State had a real good chance. Iowa, I'm not even going to talk about that.
Thank you.
That gets me pissed.
Yeah, thank you.
And so, you say, one more win next year. I don't technically see that as big progress because I feel we should have had a few more wins in the column this year.
Oh, man. Yep. The story of Husker football in recent years. But, all right, you were an undrafted wide receiver along with Daikiel Shorts, the new wide receivers coach here at Nebraska. You guys were roommates for a time up with the Bills. So, I don't know. I don't want to get too nosy, but what do you know about Daikiel? What are some of the things you got to know about him during your time with him being his roommate and or teammate?
Yeah, D Shorts, he's a great guy. As the two undrafted receivers in Buffalo, you kind of stick together. And, I mean, it was 4 or 5 months. We were together every day, all day, and I truly learned from him. And he loves the game of football. He knows the game of football. And, he was a great player at West Virginia. I think that just shows how tough it is to make it in the NFL, when he ended up getting let go at Buffalo. Couldn't really catch on anywhere, knew he wanted to get into coaching. And, what he's done in the last handful of years is super impressive. And, I had put some picture up on Instagram last week. It was our last bowl game that Nebraska went in, and he commented on it. Kind of, I hadn't touched base with him for several months, And then I see this news this week. And I'm like, did he know he was coming here at that point and just, tipping it off a little to me a bit? And so I chatted with him the other day, good catching up, and, can't wait to catch up with him in person here soon.
And you got to give us the inside scoop on that next time right there. You got to let us know he's coming. All right, dude. So people seem to love this guy, highly touted recruiter. Obviously, he's Dana Holgerson's guy, and that's why he's here. So what is it about him that makes people like him so much? Because all you hear is positive things, similar to what you just said. By the way, he will forevermore be known on this show as D Shorts, by the way.
Well, I respect his football game and his knowledge. I don't necessarily think I like him. No.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. He's a great dude, but he's just passionate about the game, and I see his coaching style. I've never witnessed it, but he's the guy that's going to have your back, but he's also going to get on you and get the most out of you. And so people have asked me, do you think he's a good coach? And I just say, well, Dana Holgerson's a great offensive mind, and if he trusts, his job's on the line, bring who he brings in, and he checks and he selects D Shorts, I trust him that his coaching is just as good as I think it is.
All right. Nobody's perfect. And when you're a roommate with somebody, you get to know their little nuances. Sometimes they're not always wonderful, because that's just called being a human being. All right. What's something about D Shorts that maybe as his roommate, like maybe he let his dishes sit in the sink and soak for 3 days, or maybe he didn't do dishes, or maybe, I don't know. What's something that people might find interesting that you learned about him being his roommate?
Oh, well, we probably didn't do a ton of dishes back then because we ate up at the facility, but I can see him definitely be a guy, if we did have dishes, that I would have been doing them. I could see him just being lazy with that stuff. And I would say he'd probably be so focused on football that, little things like that probably wouldn't faze him. And he'd just, if he was by himself, they'd just keep stacking up.
I hope my wife is listening, because I'm the same way. And for some reason, I tend to get in trouble for that. So I hope she's paying attention. She's probably working or doing something. But all right, man, I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks again.